let's dig into the film from last night's Minnesota-Denver game. And so just to give you guys a heads up, this is going to look a lot more like what the format's going to be when we get to the postseason. So when we get to the postseason, we're going to go live on YouTube after the final buzzer of these games. When we go, we'll just mostly be doing just monologues, right? We might occasionally, like a major sequence at the end of a game, we might grab the footage and go over it if for the sake of just adding a little production quality in those shows. But for the most part, those are going to be audio only, or I should say without film. The next morning, though, I'm going to wake up and watch film, and I'm just going to drop clips into a folder. And then basically we'll do this. We'll do like film sessions. It won't be every morning. It'll probably only be a few times a week. But I'm just going to drop clips and then kind of just share with you guys my findings in film. It's not going to be as structured as the shows at night. It's more going to just be for you guys to follow along with me as we're doing our postseason coverage. And so this is a good example of that. I have something crazy like 40 clips from this particular game that we're going to go through. And it's just going to demonstrate a bunch of specific concepts that I have my eye on. It's going to bounce around. We're not going to stay in specific topics. It's going to go in a linear fashion through the game. It's just a way for me to kind of share with you guys what my film sessions look like when I'm watching through these games. All right, let's get to the film. So this is the opening possession against Minnesota, and it's going to give you guys an example of the base coverage that Denver is going to use most likely against most teams. One of the big topics that we're going to be going through today in this film session is the pros and cons of going with the high drop with the tag versus the low drop where everyone stays home. And you're going to see some examples of both of them in this film session. So here, this first possession, this is what high drop with the tag looks like. So we got a little screen there. It's going to be a dribble handoff with Gobert and Conley, Jamal Murray on the ball, Nikola Jokic. The slipper in this case is going to be Gobert. The difference between a low drop and a high drop, in the deep drop or low drop, Jokic is going to keep Gobert in front of him. And because he keeps Gobert in front of him, you don't need to tag the roller from the weak side. But when Jokic comes up into a high drop, Gobert is going to get behind him. And so when Gobert gets behind him, and in this case, Minnesota is actually trying to run stack pick and roll. They're trying to screen Jokic, but it doesn't serve a purpose because Jokic is so high. In this case, the tag is coming from Michael Porter Jr., okay? So, as you can see, Gobert slips behind. Nikola Jokic is up at the level. MPJ is going to tag Gobert. As soon as the pass goes to anywhere else, or by the time Jokic recovers, Michael Porter Jr. will then close out on the weak side. Here's a good closeout. He's able to contain Jaden McDaniels. The ball gets rotated around to Naz Reid, who ends up missing a shot at the basket. So that's basically the base concept of the high drop. Essentially, Jokic comes up to the level to dissuade the pull-up jump shot and to cut off the driving lane. Somebody on the weak side, depending on who's most well-positioned for it, is going to tag the roller and then rotate back out. Here's an example of the read and react offense from Denver. So on this side of the floor, Gordon has the ball, and Jokic is going to run down, and Jamal Murray is going to run a little screening action with him. But Jaden McDaniels is going to cheat the action and come over onto this strong side of the screen. So again, you can see Jamal Murray getting set up to screen Jokic. They're kind of just getting in here and mucking things up. But when Jaden McDaniels jumps way out to the high side, you can actually see Jamal Murray make a read. You can see Jamal Murray, he's looking, he sees Jaden McDaniels all the way in the high side, so he just slips back out to the three-point line. And that's one of the cool things that makes Denver's offense so hard to guard. Like, they have these set actions, but everyone has the freedom to make reads out of it. And if you see a guy overplaying, you just slip, and all of their guys are good enough passers to be able to capitalize on those slips. Here's another example of the high drop with the tag. Okay, so we're going back to Conley with Aaron Gordon on the ball this time. Jokic is going to come high. Gobert is going to slip behind. Michael Porter Jr. is going to come tag off of Jaden McDaniels. And then here, again, this is one of those ones where Gobert should never have put the ball on the floor. He should have read that Michael Porter Jr. was there and thrown the pass. Instead, when he puts the ball on the floor, Michael Porter Jr. is able to kind of disrupt him enough for him to throw a bad pass and to turn it over. And so, again, one of the things that's an advantage of running the high drop is it puts the onus on the guy in the short roll to be able to make reads, and that's not a strength of Gobert's. and that allowed them to force a turnover on that specific play. And again, I went back and forth about this because I was thinking at first I was like, well, deep drop is like what Minnesota did what Milwaukee did to Minnesota that one time, and Conley and Ant weren't able to make enough shots. And so like that's like the upside to that style, but the upside of the high drop is it puts the onus on their playmaking, which can be a weakness on this particular team. And so we'll see some more examples of that. And I kind of came around over the course of this film session, I kind of came around to the high drop being the best option. And I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts as well. If you disagree, drop them in the comments. This is an example of Minnesota's base coverage against Denver. And so what we got here, it'll be Karl Towns instead of Naz Reid when they're healthy, but it's the power forward on Jokic with Gobert on Gordon and sitting in help. And the idea here is you're forcing Jokic to make over-the-top shots instead of pivot through shots that are at the rim. Because again, Jokic is going to shoot 60% on a hook. He's going to shoot 70% when he gets underneath the basket. And so you're basically buying that extra 10% by leaving Gobert in help. But here's the problem. Jokic is going to make that shot 60%. That's just an example of how there's not really a good option for guarding Nikola Jokic. This is another high drop against Anthony Edwards. And I really liked it against Ant. Our first two examples were against Conley. I really liked it against Ant, surprisingly, because it baited him into his biggest weakness, which is playmaking. And Ant's gotten better. Ant's gotten a lot better at playmaking this season. We've talked about it, but he's 22 years old and he's got a score first mentality. And so this is going to be a journey over the next few years for him to kind of figure this stuff out. Now, when we get a high drop with tag, you see Michael Porter Jr. coming over, right? Gordon's pointing, they're communicating. We're in the drop, right? The read here to actually beat this coverage is the skip pass. And I think in the entire game, if I remember correctly, I think Ant only made the skip pass twice with the, probably dozen or so times he saw this coverage, which I think goes to show you how it challenges the playmaking there. Ant has a tendency when he gets these high drops or blitzes to just get rid of the basketball. So in this case, he comes off, he sees the high drop, so he knows there's not really an opportunity for him to score. He just throws a swing pass to Conley. So essentially the advantage is taken away from that. Here is an example of KCP's incredible defensive ability, holding up on Naz Reid in the post, stripping him clean as he tries to, again, he's absorbing the contact, and then as soon as Naz Reid exposes the basketball in his step through to get to that hook shot, he just reaches in and grabs it. Watch. Expose the ball, grab it. Again, when you're guarding a bigger player, it's all about attacking the pocket rather than trying to contest up top. If you contest up top, you're not going to have much success because they're just taller than you. Attack the pocket, you can capitalize on their weakness, the weakness of most larger basketball players, which is ball handling. Here's an example of deep drop against Ant. Okay, so they run the first action with high drop. So this is deep drop. So again, notice Ant's Jokic is not at the level of the screen. And so because he's not at the level of the screen, he can keep Gobert in front. As a result, Michael Porter Jr. doesn't need to tag. Jamal Murray doesn't need to tag. So because everyone's home, that leaves Ant on an island with Gobert. And Michael Porter Jr. throws kind of a token tag there, but he doesn't really need to. So this puts Ant on the island as a scorer, but Ant's just an unbelievable player, and he's going to make shots there sometimes. This is an example of excellent back pressure from Jaden McDaniels on Jamal Murray in pick and roll. So again, as Jamal comes around here, Gordon's going to step in because Gobert is going to end up offering some help, and Gordon is going to step in for like a little baseline cut. But Jamal Murray throws a bad pass because he's pressured by McDaniels. McDaniels is all over him. He's knocking him off balance, and he ends up throwing a pass way too low, which turns into a turnover. Jaden McDaniels, again, in my opinion, is the best perimeter defender in the league. Here's an example of Ant beating the high drop. Again, I only saw this twice in the game, but this is what it looks like when it's done right. So here we go. We're going to get Ant with the ball screen. Gobert's going to set. AG is going to tag Gobert on the slip. So we have Ant actually rejects the screen, but Jokic is still up at the level. Gordon tags Gobert. Ant makes the skip pass to Conley. So again, this ball screen, he could come this way and Jokic being drop over there, but Jokic comes in high drop on the rejection of the ball screen. Gobert slips, Gordon tags, skip pass to Conley. That's the read that you have to make to actually beat this coverage. But he didn't make that read often enough. This was kind of a funny little action. I thought this was interesting, and I don't know if they did this on purpose, but you could talk me into it if you were a Denver fan. They just kind of lazily walk up the floor, which baits all these Minnesota players into lazily walking up the floor, which puts Jokic on an island against Naz Reid underneath the basket. Notice none of the Denver players are running up, because if they did, these Minnesota players would be running with him. It clears all this space for Jokic to quick go to work against Reid underneath the basket. Again, that might just be an impromptu accidental thing, but you could also talk me into that being on purpose. Here's one of the downsides of the high drop, and that is that if Jokic is further back, so let's wait till he comes off the screen first. So if Jokic is back here and Ant hits the Jets, he has a better chance of anticipating the drive direction and beating him to his spot. But when he's up this high, Ant can use his quickness to just go around him. And so in this case, he just goes around him and gets all the way to the rim. And it just puts more responsibility on that backline help. All right. This is an example of how in ball screens with Jokic, your job as the guard is just to occupy the rim protector and get a shot up on the rim. So Reggie Jackson with Kyle Anderson on him, we're going to get a Jokic ball screen here. As Reggie Jackson moves down, all he has to do is occupy Gobert to buy Jokic an opportunity to crash the offensive glass. So he gets in. This is a layup that he's missing. It's a really difficult layup, but now you have Monty Morris and Kyle Anderson trying to contend with Jokic underneath the basket, which is just too much of a challenge. Here is the first of Peyton Watson's 6 blocks, and I think I have all of them in this feed, but just unbelievable stuff here. The ball gets worked around to this is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker is rejecting the screen, and he needs to do a better job of setting up Peyton Watson for the screen. So he's trying to cross away from the screen just like that. What he needs to do is actually work his way closer to Kyle Anderson, because if he does, Peyton Watson will have to prep to fight over the screen. If he has to prep to fight over the screen, he's going to have to take this left foot and put it way on Kyle Anderson's high side. And as soon as he does that, if Nickeil Alexander-Walker crosses over, he's going to toast Peyton Watson because he's just way out of position to contain that drive back to that side. Instead, he rejects the screen way too early, and Peyton Watson just slides with him and meets him at the rim. There are some absolutely preposterous defensive plays from Peyton Watson in this game. Here's another one where he helps on a double team. Gobert's going to get a switch here onto Christian Braun, if I remember correctly. Yep, gets a switch. He runs down to the post and gets the touch. Makes an aggressive move into the lane, and Peyton Watson offers help. Literally leaves his feet and help. So he's literally off the ground here. Gobert's made the feed, and somehow Peyton Watson literally meets him back at the rim and blocks him. Just a ridiculous defensive play. He's like in 2 places at once. It's like having a 6th defender on the floor. Here's another just completely absurd defensive recovery from Peyton Watson. This one didn't even count as a block because they called him for a foul. So Peyton Watson is completely dealing with Conley here. There's a bounce pass to Kyle Anderson. Just watch the speed with which he recovers back to Kyle Anderson. That's completely ridiculous. That is an absurd defensive play. Like Peyton Watson is going to be so good as soon as he figures out how to be a plus offensive player in Denver's scheme. This is an example of something that Minnesota desperately needs, and that's Jaden McDaniels scoring. So in this kind of broken offensive rebound sequence, Jaden McDaniels catches and just goes straight to work on a switch against Aaron Gordon. So we get a switch, Aaron Gordon. Remember, these Denver units without Jokic are going to go to a switching attack. This is one of the best forward defenders in the league, and Jaden McDaniels just gets into his body and leans back and makes a little floater over the top. Jaden's got great length, and the way that he kind of scores is by leaning back to shoot over the top. He always has done a good job of that. Here's another Peyton Watson block of Naz Reid on a curl on a pin down. So this is a simple, basic basketball action that you see at every level. Jordan McLaughlin's going to set a pin down. Naz Reid is going to curl around it. Peyton Watson is chasing and just meets him at the rim. These plays are so ridiculous. This is an example of both coverages. So we're going to get a high drop on Ant that doesn't amount to anything, and then we're going to get a low drop that Ant actually gets a bucket. So again, here we go. Here's the high drop. We have Peyton Watson on the ball. Jokic comes up high. As he comes off, Gobert slips behind Jokic. We have a tag from Michael Porter Jr., and Ant doesn't make the skip pass. Instead, he just turns around and throws an exit pass here to Monty Morris. Advantage is gone. So again, that's another high drop that you're able to shut down the action by basically taking advantage of Anthony Edwards and some of his limited playmaking. Then we're going to go right back to Ant. This time, Jokic doesn't bother and stays in a low drop. Because he's in a low drop, there's a kind of a token tag from KCP, but he stays home. Jokic is here. Everyone's home. Jokic is on Gobert. KCP is on Naz Reid. Michael Porter Jr. is on Jaden McDaniels. Jamal Murray's on Monty Morris. But Anthony Edwards just gets a bucket. Now, there's a case to be made that the two buckets that he got in the deep drop coverage were both really tough shots. And so that's the upside, is you're going to turn Ant into a tough shot maker. And by the way, I mean, this is one of the reasons why I'm lower on Minnesota than most, is I don't trust their ability to consistently beat any coverage when it comes to the postseason. And that's a big part of why I'm not as high on them as other teams. Here's an example of relentless pursuit by Jaden McDaniels on Jamal Murray to force a turnover. So he's chasing, gets caught a little bit, chase. No let up here. He's still going. And then as soon as Jamal Murray slows down, Jaden McDaniels shoots in there and forces a turnover. I can't even imagine how much of a pain in the ass it'd be going against him for 48 minutes. All right, this is the first. Rudy Gobert was just on the menu tonight for last night for Nikola Jokic. Just barbecued him all over the place, and this is the first example of that. In transition, this is again top 5 defensive player in the world. He just doesn't even see him there. He just goes right through him. That's an easy basket. That's just easy. Here's another nice bucket from Jaden McDaniels. Scoring on an island. So we have the high drop. The high drop gets swung back to Jaden McDaniels, and Jaden McDaniels just hits Jamal Murray with a series of moves and gets to the basket. Again, they're really going to need that from him. Here is a really, really good high drop possession from Denver. All right, so we have Conley coming out there. Gobert sets the screen. Jokic comes into high drop. Gobert slips behind. We have the tag from KCP. Conley makes the swing pass to Anderson. Anderson is going to make the extra pass to Anthony Edwards. Look at that rotation from Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. identifies the rotation. He starts making his rotation as soon as the swing pass is made. Boom. So Anderson doesn't even have the ball yet, but MPJ knows that Edwards is the next rotation, and he's already out there. And so here we are. They ran ball screen, and we're at 2.6 seconds on the shot clock, and there's no advantage. That's just a really good defensive possession from Denver. Here's an example of one of the ways that you can beat. This is the second time that Ant made the skip pass in the high drop, but this time they don't actually beat it with a shot. They beat it on the offensive glass. So high drop, Gobert slips, MPJ tags, Ant finally makes the skip pass that I've been calling for. Skip pass gets made. Kyle Anderson, not a good shooter. He misses it, but watch Jokic. Jokic is here. Gobert is here. So Gobert has a massive offensive rebounding advantage here, and he's able to get that position on Jokic and finish easily at the rim. Here's an example of the classic Denver tic-tac-toe that we see on offense so often. So again, in the high drop coverage, your job is to stop them from turning the corner just as much as it is to stop them from taking the pull-up jump shot. And so when Jamal Murray really drags the ball screen around, watch Jamal Murray here. He's going to drag this all the way around, which forces Gobert to go pretty far in that direction to contain that drive. because he has to, because Jaden McDaniels gets caught a little bit. And so he drags it out. And because he drags it out, Jokic gets a really good clean catch here. And on this clean catch, Naz Reid has to tag. When he tags, Aaron Gordon is going to easily slip along the baseline for the reverse dunk. That's a very, very important part of dealing with the high drop coverage, that dragging the defenders far over as you can. That was the big, if you guys remember correctly, that was the big counter that Steph Curry used in Game 4 of the Western Conference semis last year against the Lakers after they got dominated in Game 3. Steph started really dragging that ball screen action out further to make AD go further away from the play. This time, Denver is going to beat a high drop coverage by using Aaron Gordon flashing to the high post. So here's our ball screen. Here's our high drop. Jaden McDaniels is trying to recover. Gobert is tagging off of Gordon onto Jokic. Gordon just kind of sits in that soft spot right there in the middle of the floor. And then on the catch, he takes an advanced dribble to draw Anthony Edwards in and make the swing pass to Michael Porter Jr. on the weak side. Again, like Denver, you're on the high drop. They're finding a way to get it to the soft spot every single time. Minnesota against the high drop, they're struggling to get the ball to the right spots. Ant had some good success going through Jokic at the rim in this game, and I thought this was another example. Just sticking his arms out. He drew some fouls this way too. Just wasn't really bothered by Jokic at the rim. That was an advantage for Minnesota in this matchup. Here's another example of Jokic just powering right through Rudy Gobert like he's not even there. Again, like I said, it was almost like he was trying to make a point in this game. Here's another advantage that I thought. This is another matchup advantage for Minnesota. KCP is the primary defender on Aaron Gordon to start the game, but really he struggled when Ant just tried to power through him. So again, KCP is doing everything right. He's absorbing contact. He's meeting him at spots. He's in the right spot, but Ant can just power through him to get where he wants to go. When I saw this play, it reminded me of one earlier in the game, and so I went back and pulled that one too. This is in the first quarter, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so end of the first quarter. Ant catches here on the weak side. He just hits KCP with a jab step and then powers right through him. So, like, that's the thing. I would imagine over the course of a series, like that could be a matchup where Denver might have to get a little more creative and have to use, someone like a Christian Brown a little bit more, someone like a Peyton Watson a little bit more, maybe even have to put Aaron Gordon, on Anthony Edwards for stretches. Or just, like I said, capitalize on his limited playmaking ability by just kind of throwing the kitchen sink at him and not leaving him on an island as often as you can. Here's another Jokic possession powering right through Gobert, this time on a pick and roll situation. So actually, it was a broken play. So he kind of runs over Gobert. That should have probably been an offensive foul. But he just goes, like, the point here is that Jokic sees Gobert at the rim and he just has no problem going right through him. Here's another example of Gobert struggling to handle a Jokic. Here's the setup for this play. Jokic is 6 for 7 on threes in the last 3 games. So we get a double team, a kick out, and we're going to get a ball screen. We get an off ball screen. On the off ball screen, though, watch Gobert close out. Because Jokic has literally been dead eye from 3 as of late, he has to leave his feet on the closeout. That gets him completely out of position. Soon as you watch Jokic, he understands his size advantages. The strength is his advantage. So you can see him kind of dropping that shoulder and getting low. Now watch, he just wants to get leverage, inside leverage on Gobert. So you see right there, as soon as he gets this angle, he leans into him and creates that advantage. Here we have yet another example of Anthony Edwards failing to beat the high drop coverage. Okay, so again, Jokic high drop, Gobert slip, Justin Holiday tag, and we're just going to get a straight swing pass around to Monty Morris, no advantage. Look here, though. Count the Nuggets. We have Nickeil Alexander-Walker completely unguarded this whole possession. You can't even see him. He's just standing over here unguarded, but that read isn't getting made. Now, I want to give the Nuggets a little bit of credit here. This is not an easy pass, and when you apply good ball pressure like this, it's even harder to make that pass. That's what makes those big playmaking forwards that I talk about such an advantage when you get to the postseason. These guys are standing 6'8", 6'9", and they can just throw those over the top passes that much easier. Another high drop, another contested shot. And then here we're going to get another example of Jokic just powering through Gobert, going in transition the other way. A nice little feed here from Peyton Watson. And just again, Jokic just doesn't even see Gobert underneath the basket. Here's an example of the high drop when it gets botched, primarily from being late on the tag. So this actually is a slip or a switch because we're in the early fourth quarter period here, and Jokic is off the floor. So this Denver lineup's going to be switching everything. But on the switch, Reggie chased a little too far over the top, and so Naz Reid got an easy slip. But MPJ's late. I want to cut MPJ some slack here, so it's not a traditional pick and roll coverage. It's a botched slip, but he does need to be paying a little bit better attention. All right. This is an example of one of the most important stretches of the game, in my opinion. So Jamal Murray was on a minutes restriction. So usually this stretch of the game, you're getting Jamal Murray out there with Jokic off, switching everything, and Jamal Murray trying to create all the offense, right? But because of the minutes restriction, Jamal Murray's not out there. So it's the same bench unit that's struggled all year with Jamal Murray, except for this time it's Reggie Jackson. And like I talked about in our contender rankings, the way that this group managed to kind of float the boat last year without Jokic in the postseason, because remember, they were +4 per 100 in the postseason after being -12 per 100 without Jokic in the regular season. They ratcheted up their defensive intensity. And so the defense was everything for the Denver Nuggets in this run. They went in to start the fourth quarter at 83-80, the 2 points for the Michael Porter Jr. late tag. But they're going to go this stretch, and Jokic and Murray are going to check back into the game with about 7 minutes left, and the lead is going to increase from 3 to 4. So they actually won this shift mostly because of their work on the defensive end and some great chemistry between Aaron Gordon. I keep calling him Eric Gordon. Some great chemistry between Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson operating on the low block on the other end. So again, switching everything, right? Gordon switches on to Conley. And then we're going to get Naz Reid setting a screen on Gordon. That's going to get switched Watson onto Conley. Watch Watson absorb the contact and force the turnover. Again, same kind of thing that happened to Jamal Murray earlier in the game with Jaden McDaniels. Physicality, ball pressure, going to make a guy more likely to make a mistake. Here we have Peyton Watson blocking Naz Reid again, this time in a straight post up on a spin move. So he gets beat on this move, gets beat to the baseline side, and he's just so athletic, he just meets him at the rim. Every time I see these highlights, it's just unbelievable. Christian Brown gets a block as well in the broken part of the play. We go the other way in transition. This is an example of the wave after wave of athleticism you face with Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. So Aaron Gordon's going to make a move here against Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and he's going to miss. But watch Michael Porter Jr. just sneak in there and get the offensive rebound. And again, a big part of that there is Gordon misses this shot, but he's on Jordan McLaughlin, has drawn Nickeil Alexander-Walker in help, and Rudy Gobert comes and makes a late attempt to try to block the shot. That is what clears this space for Michael Porter Jr. to get in there and work. This is a beautiful spinning feed from Peyton Watson to get a dunk for Aaron Gordon. So catches here on the wing, rip through, McLaughlin comes over, spins around, drop off pass to Gordon for a dunk. Really good chemistry there between the two. Here's a really nice possession of switching defense from the Nuggets. Brown switches on to McLaughlin. Gordon switches on to McLaughlin. But as a result, we end up with Naz Reid on Christian Brown. Got to hold up guards on switches against the bigs. And again, this will probably be Karl Towns in a real series, but still same kind of principle. And Christian Brown just stymies Naz Reid, forces him to take a shot over the top, and he misses. Great work there from Christian Brown. Underrated, kind of like strong, low center of gravity athlete, Christian is. This time, Eric, I did it again. I don't know why I'm doing that. Aaron Gordon returns the favor to Peyton Watson. Makes a move, draws the help, drop off, draws the foul. So now Jokic is going to come back into the game. Peyton Watson goes 1 for 2. So Jokic is back in the game, and the lead is gone from 83-80 to 91-87 in literally a 5-minute stretch without your two best players on the floor. Really, really impressive stretch there from the Denver bench. Here's an example of the unstoppable Jokic-Murray two-man game. As he comes off here, he's going to pull it back out, and they're going to run it again. And this time, he draws Gobert in, and Jokic, instead of rolling into the tag, he just kind of finds that soft spot around the foul line and knocks down a jumper. So Anthony Edwards has just checked back into the game. It's a 6-point game, largest lead for Denver in a while. 6 minutes left. You desperately need a good shot, but he's 22 years old, and he's got a score-first mentality, and he's got to learn that this is not a good shot. Comes off of like a little screen here from Mike Conley, and Jamal Murray's right there, and he just takes a contested pull-up three as soon as he steps in. Just don't like the shot selection there from Ant. You remember earlier when we were talking about that Nickeil Alexander-Walker play on Peyton Watson where he did a bad job of setting up his man for the screen? Here's an example of a much better job setting up your man for the screen. So again, watch. Jamal Murray wants to get Jaden McDaniels to the point where he's starting his footwork to fight over the top before he crosses over. So notice that. See that little hop Jaden McDaniels took? That hop is because he worked over to the screen. Right there, hop. He's hopping that left, just like I told you earlier. You got to take your screen side foot and you have to get it over the top of the screener's top foot. That's the footwork for fighting over the top of the screen. You've got to make him engage that footwork before you cross back over. The Nickeil Alexander-Walker did not do that. Jamal Murray did, and as a result, he's able to beat Jaden McDaniels cleanly off the dribble. Then from there, Jokic is rolling hard, which keeps Gobert backpedaling, which opens up the floater. And Jamal Murray's just so good at all those coverage beater shot, like the shot making pieces to beat coverages. Jokic torches Gobert again here with a spin move towards the baseline. Now our lead's up to 9. And then here's an example of how hard it is to guard Denver because of their 3-man actions and their ability to slip. So as we're getting ready to run our 2-man game here, but they're setting it up with the quick pin down, right? So essentially, Christian Braun is setting a screen on Jaden McDaniels to try to generate a little bit of separation so that when Jamal Murray comes off this dribble handoff, he's just in a better position with Jaden trailing more, right? So in this case, Mike Conley is trying to help guard that action. He's pointing. You can see immediately he identifies it. Mike Conley right away knows this is going to be Jamal Murray coming down and a pin down setting into the dribble handoff. Conley points. Hold up. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Everyone's keyed up this way. Everyone is. And because everyone's keyed up this way, Mike Conley's getting ready to hedge. And because Mike Conley's up like that and Jaden McDaniels is still chasing, Christian Braun has inside position on everybody to slip to the basket. And this is the one guy on the planet that'll never miss that pass. And there are a few other guys in the league, but Jokic is in the short list of guys that are never going to miss this read. Christian Braun slips it, dunks on Gobert for the first of 2 times in this game. There's a little full court pressure from Minnesota late in the game. Game's already basically over, but a little full court pressure. And on this action, they're going to make a kick-head pass to Christian Braun. Christian Braun jumps right into Gobert's chest and then finishes over him with his left hand. Just fucking disgusting. Pardon my language. Then we get a Brown lob in transition, this time from Michael Porter Jr. Game's out of reach here, but these are just highlights. We're showing you some highlights for fun. And then lastly, this was a really fun one, is they run a little screening action for Naz Reid. Peyton Watson recovers, blocks it, gets the kick-ahead pass, throws down the dunk.